This is a story about a friend of mine. I don't know if you know him or not, but his name is Friar Tuck. Pretzelgarten Audio presents The Story of Friar Tuck and Don't Eat the Toothpaste. Created by Shields Bialasik. Story told by Keith Bosher. Now I'm sure that you must be wondering how all this nonsense began. Now, a hamster named Friar Tuck and a rat named Ralph began to go on all sorts of wild adventures. Well, if you listen very close, I'll begin to share with you the stories I myself was told. You see, it was some time ago when I was a young boy that my brother and I were wrestling in my bedroom. He had just pinned me to the floor and was attempting to bend me into a pretzel. My head was firmly pressed against the carpet, my arms and legs were bending upwards, and it was at this moment that I noticed something quite unusual. An empty tube of toothpaste under my bed. Directly next to it was a small hole which had been cut into my wall. The hole was round in shape, with rough edges as if it had been chewed. My brother had told me it was the hole of a snake, and this had me worried. The last thing I wanted was to have a snake climb into my bed when I was sleeping. The toothpaste was the real mystery, though, because over the last week, 5 tubes had gone missing, each time needing to be replaced with a new one. Nobody knew what was happening, only that the next time it needed to be replaced, my brother and I would be paying for it ourselves. The tube lay sideways on the floor, the end having been neatly removed and the entire contents licked clean. That's a lot of toothpaste for someone to be eating. I wasn't exactly sure who or what had made that hole. I worried that it might have been a snake, but I soon discovered that this hole belonged to a furry little hamster named Friar Tuck. The most amazing thing about this hamster, Friar Tuck, was that he could talk. Yes, night after night he began to tell me stories about his life and adventures with his best friend, Ralph the rat. At first, I didn't believe what he had to share, but the more he told me, the more I realized that he simply couldn't be making this up. After all, he was a magic hamster. Still, to this day, many doubt what I have to say. But if you give it a chance, I think you will also discover the real truth behind the matter. Let's go ahead and start from the beginning, the day I discovered the hole in the empty toothpaste tube under my bed. The rest of the day had been uneasy for me. I was thinking about the snake who might live in the hole. Therefore, I went ahead and moved several of my largest books down from the bookshelf. I then slid these under my bed so that I could block this hole. This should have solved the problem, or so I had thought. I went ahead and brushed my teeth, changed into my pajamas, and climbed into bed. I wanted to be sure the toothpaste would be safe tonight, so I tucked it under my pillow for safekeeping. It was just that time of night when the sun had set and stillness had entered the air. I was drifting off to sleep when I heard a sudden and abrupt noise. It sounded like someone knocking at my door. I immediately sat up. I was on the top bunk. Who could be knocking at this late hour? My parents were asleep downstairs, and my brother in the other room. I quickly and quietly climbed down the ladder, then proceeded to tiptoe over to the door. I was making sure to be very quiet. I leaned forward, opening the door, but no one was there. The hallway was empty. I quickly turned towards the window because the knocking was persisting. Over to the window I headed. Of course, it was dark, and I had to push my face up against the glass to peer out. No one was there. I was just about to climb back up into the bunk when I heard the knocking again, only this time I knew exactly where it was coming from. It was coming from under my bed. I suddenly froze absolutely still. The knocking was not stopping. It was getting louder. Was it the snake? The knocking had a very distinctive rhythm to it. I was quite sure no snake that I knew of would be able to make such a knock. The knock sounded like this. I did, however, take the necessary time to get my flashlight and then went underneath my bed. I then turned on the light, laying it on the floor, pointing it in the direction of the hole. The beam cut through the darkness. The knocking was now becoming louder and rather insistent. I reached my hand forward and then slid the books to the side quietly and quickly. I wanted to surprise whomever or whatever it was on the other side. I wasn't exactly sure what to expect, but what happened next I never could have imagined. There in front of me stood a rather large, fat, and furry hamster. He was golden brown with spots of white and tan, and he was still knocking in the air when I pulled the books away. I knew we had mice in our house at times during the spring. You could often hear them in the walls, but this was not what I expected. I stared silently, looking at that furry little creature under my bed. And then our eyes met. It was a moment of unexplained consequences. The small hamster stepped forward, and then in a clear and cheerful voice, spoke to me. "Hi, my name's Friar Tuck. How do you do?" He stared directly into my eyes while he was talking. I was immediately surprised and jumped backwards, hitting my head on the bottom of the bed. "I'm here to be your new pet." "My new pet?" "Yes. Haven't you been expecting me? You just told your parents the other day that you wanted to have a pet hamster. They said yes, so here I am." "Well, I guess I just wasn't expecting you to come to me." "Hey, wait a minute. Am I really talking to a hamster?" The unusual circumstance had just struck me. Was I really lying there on the floor having a conversation with a hamster? As if reading my mind, Friar Tuck simply responded, "Yes, that's right. I'm Friar Tuck. I'm a magic hamster. And yes, you are having a conversation. So go ahead, please continue." I worked to regain my voice and then continued on. "Well, I was just surprised that when I wished for a hamster and now you're here and—" "That's right, my friend. Things work that way. So let's get down to business. We'll be spending quite a bit of time together, and I wanted to make sure that we have a good understanding around a few things. I have some small requests, however, which are good food, back rubs, clean newspaper, fresh water, and, of course, toothpaste." "Yes, that's right," he said, "toothpaste." "Oh, and do not lock me in a cage. I come and go as I please. Got it?" I simply nodded in acknowledgement. "I'm much too old to be bending bars open at night, okay?" Before I even had a chance to respond, Friar Tuck continued. "Great! In exchange for your hospitality, I'll provide you with free entertainment and a real education." From this point on, we were inseparable. Friar Tuck lived in my backpack and traveled with me wherever I went. Every spare moment we had together, Friar Tuck was sharing his stories with me, telling me all about his life and adventures around the world. Many of the adventures involved Friar Tuck's friend, Ralph. Though I never met him personally, I felt like I knew him well. Every now and then, Friar Tuck would go away for a few days, only to return with new stories and more great adventures. These stories have lived in my memories to this day, and I'm sure you won't forget them either. Shall we begin? This story of Friar Tuck is one of many available as paperbacks or downloadable MP3 files for playback on any computer or handheld device. Why not visit us right now at pretzelgarten.com?